All right, should we get started?
Yeah, let's get started.
All right. Happy Sunday, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. A great turnout, so we're super excited. Today, our call, we are going to be focusing on macros, specifically MyFitnessPal, which as coaches, it's something that comes up probably every single day when we're doing check-in. So we just thought we'd have just a kind of a general discussion. We're each going to just talk about different things and then open it up for any questions that you guys have. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll get started. The first thing that I'm going to talk about is we all know that when everybody is checking in, your coaches are always asking you, how are you doing with your macros? That, usually it's like 10 out of 10 or, rate yourself on how you've been doing. And we just kind of wanted to give you guys a brief overview of what we're looking for. So when somebody says that they hit their macros perfectly, they got a 10 out of 10, what that means to us as a coach, it means that you have been within 5 grams of each of your macros every single day. So that means 5 with it can be plus or minus 5 grams of your protein, your fats, and your carbohydrates. So that's what a 10 out of 10 is for us. It's not going to be so much focusing on calories, because I know a lot of times I get that response as well, like, oh, well, I stayed under my calories, so I hit my macros perfectly. So you could be under your macros or under in calories or even over in calories and still not be meeting your macro requirements. So that's just really important to keep in the back of your mind. Yes, calories are important, but at the end of the day, what we're really looking for is to be within that 5 gram range of all of your macronutrients. Because it's going to be, think of it as more like quality versus quantity. We want to make sure that you're getting the right proportions and the right ratios of nutrition necessary for you. So that's that. Just to kind of think twice when you're rating yourself. And it's okay. Like, we're not always going to be a 10 out of 10. You're going to have some weeks that you may be 2 out of 10 or 5 out of 10. And that's okay. That's why we like to have check-ins and like to know all about you every single week, so we know what's going on in your world. And we don't have the expectation that every week is going to be a 10 out of 10. I know most importantly, probably when you're getting ready for a show, like when we're getting ready to peak, things like that, it is more important. But overall, it's just holding yourself accountable and being really honest, because that's how we can help you and coach you the best. I'm just going to go over the general math of macros and calories, because this will kind of set up what Anne is going to talk about. So I know a lot of times people are focused on calories, but we also want to talk about how how each macronutrient, what does that equal into calories? So when you're talking about protein and carbohydrates, you get 4 calories per gram of each of those macronutrients. So like, let's say, for instance, you're having 20 grams of protein, like chicken, you would multiply that by 4 to get the total amount of calories that you're getting for that particular food. So carbs and protein is 4 grams or 4 calories per gram, and then fats is going to be 9. So you get 9 calories per gram of fat. So it's going to be more. So that's just the general math, and Anne will kind of go into detail a little bit more why that's important sometimes, or not sometimes, all the time, because when you're verifying your entries, it kind of gives you a ballpark, like if you saw something that said, this is 20 grams of protein, but it's 400 calories, you would understand the math wouldn't work out, right? Because 20 times 4 is not 500, obviously. So we just kind of want to set that up because it helps to give you point of reference in terms of what the values are when you're looking in MyFitnessPal. And that also goes for alcohol. Alcohol is probably a question that we get all the time. And there's already going to be entries on that, and Anne will go into that. But if you know the basic math, you're either you can take your alcohol out of your carbs or your fats, you'll kind of know in general what the math is that you're looking at. So I will hand it over to Anne, and she will take over.
Right. Hello, everybody. So I'm going to share my screen and just kind of walk you through some different entries, because I know, like, when I'm doing my check-ins, I'm constantly telling clients, you have a wonky entry somewhere, or you have a junk entry somewhere, and then they'll say, what does that mean? So a little education on what I mean by that when I say you have a wonky or a junk entry. So let me get this up. Okay, so everybody can see my screen? Yes, yes, okay. Okay, so I think I'm going to start with, just kind of some basic things. And I always tell my clients, the more detail, the better. So I think chicken's a perfect example. So if you just type in chicken breast, right? If you just type in plain old chicken breast, let's say we say one medium cooked skinless breast. I'm going to change that to ounces because that's, let's say you're having 4 ounces of chicken. So you put that in there. That is, oh, this one actually says cooked, so that's helpful. But sometimes when you type in chicken breast, it won't say cooked or raw, and you just kind of have to assume if you don't type in like grilled chicken or chicken breast cooked, it's going to give you an entry for raw chicken. And then I think everybody knows, but if not, this green check mark in MyFitnessPal means it's a verified entry. So you know it's correct. It's not a wonky entry that somebody decided to share. So if you put chicken breast in cooked right here, it'll give you cooked 3 ounces. And then just little tips too. Does everybody know anything in blue on your phone? These things here will be blue. Even though this entry comes up as 3 ounces, you can change it to 1 ounce and then customize it. You could put 4.2, 4.5, 5.0, whatever you're putting in. So you can put in 4.0 for 4 ounces of chicken breast. And now you can see on the screen, there's a pretty significant difference between cooked and raw chicken breast. So it's little things like that where you just need to kind of pay attention to your entries. Okay, so the next one I want to talk about, and when I go in and look at somebody's food log, like Tasha was saying, I don't care, and this is why we tell our clients, we don't care about the calories, don't look at the calories, pay attention to your actual macros, because there's a lot of things that you can enter, especially when you're entering anything packaged, where you're using like scan the barcode on a package. Packaging labeling can be a little misleading in some regards. So I'm just, as an example, going to use a Quest bar. So pull up a good old Quest bar. Everybody gets to use their math skills here in a second. So type in a Quest bar. We'll pick this one's just fine. Okay. So we put in a Quest bar. So here we have a Quest bar. 23 carbs, 20 protein, 6 fat. So now if you actually do the math on that and you take 23 times 4, let me find my little sheet. I think I already did this ahead of time, but so you can, do basic math. 23, because we know carbs and protein are both 4 calories per gram. So you're going to go 23 times 4 is going to give you 92. You're going to do the same for the protein. You're going to go 20 times 4. So obviously that's 80. And then 6 grams of fat times 9 calories will give you 54. So when you do the math on that, you add it all together and it comes out to 226 calories, not 180. And here's why. On a Quest bar, there's a ton of fiber in it. So they are giving the calories that they're printing on the label is based on net carbs. So they're only digging you for 4 grams of carbs, not 20. We don't use net carbs the way we have you guys track macros. So this is a perfect example where if I have somebody who's eating these kind of things, or let's say they eat a couple Quest bars a day, I get down to the bottom and their macros are spot on, but it's saying they're over in their calories. And that's the reason why. So this is why we kind of named this like macro detectives, is when you enter things like pay attention, just look at it for a quick second and look across the line of the macros and be like, okay, does that make sense? You don't have to get out your calculator and make sure it's perfect, but if something looks way off or you're like, wait a minute, something's not adding up, it's either a junk entry that doesn't have a green check mark next to it, or it's something like this where the labeling is just a little bit off or a little bit confusing. And fiber, I think, is usually the biggest biggest offender is if they're, by Food and Drug Administration rules, they can print a net carb calorie count. So that one's a little screwy. And then the other example I was going to use to give you guys alcohol. So obviously, so alcohol is technically its own macro at 7 calories per gram, but for obvious reasons, there's no tab in MyFitnessPal for alcohol because we shouldn't have an alcohol goal we're trying to meet every day. So I think the easiest way to do it, so you could do a quick add and do the math and get out your calculator, but that's not any fun, especially if you're sitting in a wine bar or a restaurant. So I think the easiest way to do it is those calories. If you just type in red wine, type in a glass of red wine. Let me add it. Okay, perfect example. So red wine, you got dinged for 153 calories, but the only macro it counted was 5 carbs. We know 5 times 4 is 20. So you're only getting dinged for 20 calories on the macro side, or 5 macros on the macro side, but 153 calories. So anytime my clients are entering their alcohol wrong, I always know, because they're going to be way over. They're going to be either over in calories or they're going to be spot on in their calories, but they're going to be way under in carbs, because you have to pull these calories from somewhere. They either have to come from your carbs, from your fats, or you can get fancy and do what's called a split, where you're pulling half the calories from your carbs and half the calories from your fats. So instead of doing all the math, I think the easiest way to do it is just be detailed in your description. So type red wine, I can type, and then carbs. Okay, so here we go. When red wine carbs, this is going to be 6 ounces, so these numbers might not jive exactly, but that's okay. Okay, so now you see on the screen, 6 ounces of red wine, 120 calories, 30 grams of carbs, because somebody has already done the math and put in a good entry, pulling it from carbs. You can do the same. Let's do red wine split. See if I can find a good one for a split. Yeah, you'll see it pops up, red wine, carbs, fat split. But again, here's a really good example too. Pay attention when you're looking at the entries. So you're like, perfect, somebody did the math, carb, fat split, and you click on it and you add it. And they did the math, but they failed to put in any calories. So now your macros are going to be on, but you're going to end up with a bunch of extra calories. So this right here is what I call a junk entry. The calories are saying 0, but it is dinging you for the correct amount of macros. So we're going to delete that, and we're going to find a good one. So wine. Okay, red wine. Now this one's 7 ounces. That's okay. I should be able to change this. Use my own practices here. We're comparing apples to apples. Okay. Okay, so now again, it's done the math. So it took half, it basically took half of 143, which is what, 71.5 calories, and pulled those from carbs and pulled the other half from fats. So you can get creative. If you're at the end of your day and you want to have a glass of wine and you have a little bit of carbs and a little bit of fats left, you can pull it from both, or you can pull it directly from your fats. So those are probably my easiest examples of where you'll just end up with really weird things that come about. Any other examples that anyone would want me to share that you guys can think about that you struggle with, or they don't ever seem to pull up right? Oh, I know what I was going to do. The other one. Here's another one I run into when I'm doing check-ins. Is I know people just get going fast and you don't have all day to log, but they'll do things like okay, I can't type quinoa. Good Lord. Okay. Here we go. I had someone do this the other day. They put in that they have half a cup of quinoa. They added it to their food diary. Okay, so I know in my head that this is a good entry, that's it. That is a cooked quantity. But they had put one in Here we go. They grabbed one of these, and probably because it is at the top of the list and didn't think a thing of it. Half a cup of quinoa is not 313 calories, 55 carbs, 5 fat, and 12 protein. That is for a dry half cup. It's an uncooked. And they just plugged it in there and moved on and didn't like scan the line. And so I had to tell them that they were actually under on their macros that day. So it's just little stuff like that. The more description you can put in your search line, the better. So if you just always type quinoa cooked or jasmine rice cooked, oatmeal cooked. Oatmeal is another one. You just type in oatmeal, you need to either say cooked or dry to get a correct entry. So I'll take those off. Okay. How did I just? Okay, I need to get back to you. Hold on a moment. Okay. So does anyone have any other like entries or ideas or things they wanted, thoughts they had on things that they struggle with when they're entering or knowing how to enter them? While I have it up.
I think we had a hand raised.
Do we? Nope, I just raised my hand and undid it.
Not you, Anne. Was
Wasn't
it
me.
Alina?
Yes. So I just realized that there was a new feature which is net carbs, which I think asked me if I want to track net carbs maybe 2 months ago, and I pressed on it and I didn't know how to undo it. And every day I had like 30 to 40 grams of carbs left with 0 calories left. But I just looked it up on the YouTube just right now. So I undid that net carb calculator because I knew there was something off. I just wanted to make sure that everybody else is not, fall into the same trap.
Yeah, and we talk about that when we set new people up, is to make sure that net carb setting is off.
Right, but it was a new feature. I remember a couple of months ago, it just came up and I had no idea what it is. So I clicked on it and then I didn't know how to unclick it.
It pops up on mine all the time too. I don't know why. It's like every few days it'll pop up. But I just ignore it, obviously. But
yeah, so now I went back like a couple of weeks and I like -5 to -8 carbs. And before it was like between 20 and 40 grams like under. So I went from like, but I kept my calories at where they're supposed to be. So intuitively I did things more or less right. But that net carb calculator needs to, people need to pay attention to that.
Yeah, for people who eat kind of the same thing, who are on prep and stuff, it's not going to affect them too much, but just pay attention to that. It pops up all the time on my app. I don't know if it does for everyone, but I'm finding it happening to mine all the time.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that was it. Thank you.
So I've got a question. I've started tracking food raw and then kind of calculating out. So I've been tracking for a long time, and I've gone between tracking cooked, tracking raw, and I've started tracking raw and just calculating it out so that I know what the raw weight is, and then I know what the cooked weight is, and then I do the math. So I know that it's like 50%, so like a sweet potato, because I know that when the entries, sometimes it depends on how it's cooked, how much water has evaporated out, how much, the cooking method, and like if it's longer or shorter. So I'll do a lot of extra math. And I'm just wondering, is that better? So that that like a cooked sweet potato is, say, I don't know, 100 grams. Raw, it was, say, 200 grams. So I know that I can eat, a certain percentage to hit my targets. I'm just wondering if that's like more accurate.
Judith, you're absolutely right. Your way of doing
Yes.
it would be 100% more accurate, because cooking method is huge. Like, I know, like, you're right. Certain things like sweet potatoes, like for me, like butternut squash potatoes, things that like really dry out or shrink, especially if you're using like an air fryer, the difference is night and day. So absolutely smartest to just weigh it raw before you throw it in, and just log a raw entry, because it's going to be the same Well, unless you're doing a big batch where you need to separate it out. But like if you weigh out 200 grams of butternut and then air fry it, you can eat everything that's in there because you already weighed it and logged it as a raw weight. Because you're right, things that lose a lot of water when they cook, there could be a pretty good difference. And even if you put in Fitness Pal, cooked butternut, it's totally different if you steamed it if I steam my butternut in my Instapot as opposed to sticking in my air fryer, it's totally different. Totally different. So yeah.
I agree.
That's
Judith, I used to do mine the same way. So I was doing a ton of extra math. And then at some point I must have decided I did not want to do that. So Jamie just told me I needed to be consistent one way or the other. So if I was going to weigh everything raw, then I needed to do that or do it cooked. And that's how I transition. But I do think the way you do it, if you are okay with it, it is the most exact way.
Thank you.
What was the other thing I was gonna? One that came up actually today on a check-in does anybody struggle with figuring out how to build recipes? Like add in all of your quantities, build a recipe and put in everything, and then like how to figure out the macros on one serving or
Yes.
yes.
Can I say something on that?
Absolutely.
So I actually went out and I made some banana bread, and I went through the whole thing. I determined how many calories were in a box based on the calories and the macros that were already on there. And I literally wrote out every single ingredient and put next to them how many servings per ingredient and then how many calories, protein, fats, and carbs were in each thing. And I added it all up. Well, then I look online to try and find that same thing, and nothing was adding up. So it was like saying there was 400 plus calories in this tiny little piece of banana bread, or maybe it was cornbread. Yeah, it was cornbread. And the math wasn't adding up. And I was like, am I losing my mind? Is this wrong entry online? Am I doing something wrong? And I do my math all over again. And then I couldn't weigh it or put it in as an entry because it would come up as only one slice or one square. And I could never do it in grams or ounces like my coach has always requested. So any help on that would be fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. Does anyone want to tackle this? Or do you want me to tackle it? Let me tackle it.
Go
Okay.
ahead, Ann.
I'm going to share my screen again because I think it's going to it could be the easiest way for me to do this. So, okay. So I used to do the same thing. I'd make myself absolutely crazy trying to do recipes. So building a recipe, as long as you're entering every single ingredient as grams, you will have a total gram weight at the end.
Okay.
And then you can, so let's say your entire recipe turns out to be, 600 grams. Then you don't even need to know what one serving is. You can put it on the scale and scoop out 200 grams or 100 grams or whatever will fit into your macros. So let me just do, something simple here.
For the record, I don't have the same screen on my Fitness Pal as you've been showing on here. I'm not sure why. It's the same thing, but not the same thing.
That's so interesting. And you're doing it from a desktop, not your computer? I mean, from your phone?
No, I'm doing it from my phone.
You're doing it from your phone, which is okay. It'll still work. So, shoot, I obviously can't share my phone screen, but let me pull up yeah, it looks a little different on the phone, but it truly is the same features. So like from your phone in the bottom right-hand corner where you click on more, and then you're just going to go to My Meals, Recipes, and Foods.
Yes.
And then under recipes, you're going to hit create a recipe. Let me see if I've got a recipe in here that I can just kind of duplicate off of my phone and kind of show you what I mean by grams, doing everything in grams. Recipe.
Audrey brought up a really good point. Don't forget to weigh your dish that you're using or tear it out. You know, so if you put a bowl on the scale, make sure you zero it out.
Yes, yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's just do, let's just do butternut. Steamed butternut. Oh, I'm in recipes. Never mind. That's not what I want to do. I'm not importing a recipe. I want to build a recipe. Enter new recipe. There we go. So from your phone, the same thing. You're just going to go to build a recipe, and then it will, at the bottom of the screen, it'll say new recipe, or in blue across the bottom banner, it just says create a recipe. And you can do the same thing. You'll say enter ingredients manually, and then same thing. You're going to give it a title. Servings, I put in just a wonky number, and then I go back and edit it, because you're not going to know, because basically the serving is going to be 1 gram, if that makes sense. And then, so serving size is 1 gram, and the number of servings can be anything from 50 to 150 to 200 to however many grams of it you're going to eat. Okay, so recipe name. Oh, here's a good one. I'll just use my peanut butter spread, because I think that will pull up. Protein spread, add ingredients. Okay, so this is just a little peanut butter spread I make. So let's go. Peanut butter. Peanut butter, perfect. Okay, and then 2 tablespoons, 32 grams. I'm going to go 1 tablespoon because I use, let's say 4. Oops. And add. So again, you're going to just keep yourself a little tab of the math. So you're going to go 32 times 4 and write that down. And then you're going to go PB2. I'm going to do this one because it's a simple recipe and it's only got 3 ingredients. Oh my gosh, what did I just do? Sorry, I'm trying to add ingredients, not do that. Original. And then same thing, you can change anything on your phone. This will be blue where it says 2 tablespoons. Anything in blue you can change. So again, I'm just going to change it to grams, and I put in 40 grams of that. And then I do my PE Science protein powder. Protein. Cake pop. Okay. Oh my gosh, why do I keep typing? Sorry guys, I keep typing in the wrong spots. I usually do this on my phone as well, so I'm being a little challenged. Okay. All right, so cake pop protein powder is 31 grams. Again, I'm going to change that to 1 gram because I think I do 30 grams of that. And then I just add water and stir it until it's like the consistency of frosting. So I just type in my water. Do that in grams, and I add 85 grams of water. Okay, so there is your recipe. Serving size. Okay, and then I would need to do the math really quick. So number of servings is going to be your total grams. So in this case, you're going to go, we got 32 times 4, so 128. So we're going to go 128 plus 40 for the PB2, 30 for the protein powder, 85 for the water. So 283 is total recipes. I mean, total grams. Yeah. And then if I wanted to log this, so I'm going to log it to today. Servings is going to be 1 gram. Log it, and then I would have to edit it once I get there. This is so weird to do this from the desktop. Actually, it didn't work out. Let's go. Oh, I know I'm going to do this. Okay. Well, so basically when you go to log it, you would just change the quantity to 1 gram, and then you can use as many grams as you want. That's just like a little protein spread I make and use a lot. I just stick it on my scale and scoop out like 20 grams, 25 grams, 30 grams, whatever I can fit into my macros.
Okay.
And this job request thing is something that happens to us all the time. So I'm going to stop sharing. Come back to you guys. So yeah, so you can do that with any recipe as long as everything's in grams. When you get to the end, I mean, you have some recipes. I'll do like soups where the total grams turns out it's like close to 3,000 total grams. Because I'll make like a big batch, but then you just know you can just scoop out, enter it in Fitness Pal, keep adjusting the grams until you're like, oh, perfect, I can have 250 grams. That's a serving that fits my macros. And you just scoop it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions before I pass it to Corinne?
I had a quick question.
Yep.
I'm like sideways.
Hi,
Hi, Mimi.
Amy.
Do you want to, so I noticed my friend logged like her feast mode seasonings and stuff. Do you want us to log like salt or like seasoning, like things that are like 0 calories? How do you feel? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a question for your coach. Every coach is a little bit different. Like for me, if my clients are eating at home and they're not, I don't need them to log their seasoning. If they're making their food, I don't worry about it. If they're getting really close to show and sodium's an issue and we want to make sure sodium's staying really consistent, I will have them log that. But what a hassle. I don't have time to log, half a teaspoon of my beast mode seasoning. Like I don't have it in me. So, but ask your coach for sure, because they may want you to. So,
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Is Corinne your coach?
Yeah, I was like, dang, like this girl's on point. Sarah showed me her macros and she's a pro. And so I was like, oh, I need to log my macros like a pro and do every little thing. But I think she was doing that to show me how she flavors her food. Because we were sharing like meal prep ideas versus, I don't know if she does that all the time. It's probably saved, like she just copies it over day after day. But I was like, I don't track my feast mode. So
yeah, definitely. Doesn't have sodium in it anyway. If they're like the no sodium seasonings, definitely don't bother. But yeah, if you're using a lot of a certain seasoning that's super heavy, like a lot of garlic salt or regular table salt or that sort, for your own reference, it might be good just to. It's good when you're having weight fluctuations, right? So that's like something I look at with my clients when they're like, I don't know what's happening, and I'll look at their food log and be like, you ate out yesterday and your sodium's like through the roof. So it's just water weight. Kind of a thing. But so if you're concerned about it or you're seeing weird fluctuations in your weight, it might be interesting to track it just to see if it's sodium fluctuations that's causing water weight. But as far as like logging every single spice you put on your food, no. I say no. That's my vote is no.
Awesome. Thank you.
So I've got a question about, you mentioned wine at the restaurant. I'm just wondering, like, and I'm competing this coming weekend, so I'm in prep, so none of this is really relevant to me at the moment, but I'm just curious about tracking when you go out. How accurate, I don't know how easy it is to be accurate. If you get a chicken breast and you don't know how they prepared it, you can say no oil, or you get a glass of wine. It's just, I guess at that point, it's just an estimate, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, you're guestimating. That's why you don't get to eat out right before show.
Darn it.
A lot of guesswork. But yeah, at the end of the day, if you're not deep in prep, it's just a matter of waiting to keep yourself accountable and kind of, you can be weird like us and bring little food scales with you to the restaurant and ask for an extra plate and weigh your food out as you go.
I've done that before.
We've all done it.
But
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah.
I had somebody ask me if I was a drug dealer with a scale.
Oh, you got a little scale?
Yeah. Because he saw a notebook and he saw a scale, and I was talking to another friend of mine, and I was showing her how I weigh my food and stuff, because she's trying to lose weight and whatnot. And I said, well, I bought a scale and this is what I do. And this kid came up and he's like, are you guys dealing drugs or something? Should I be nosing? I'm like, no.
You're like, nothing that exciting, buddy. Just weigh my
Yeah.
chicken. That's funny. That's funny. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, I am going to pass it over to Coach Corinne.
Okay, we'll see how this goes. How long I can
Oh,
last without having a coughing attack. Got a cough drop in.
Yes. Yeah, she's
Kind
got
of cold for a while. So I was just going to talk about like integrity with food and your logs. So something just to keep in mind when you're logging is just, this is for you. It's not for us as your coaches. We want you guys to succeed, and we feel, we're actually happy when you're progressing. We don't want to punish you and take food away. We actually want to give it to you. So when you're logging your food, just have integrity. Look for the things with the green check marks. Don't try to cheat yourself by finding the lowest calories, the lowest macros, because it makes you feel better, but you're still taking in those calories. So when you're going out to eat, for myself, I always try to find something like in the middle ground, whether it's like you try to overestimate a little bit, on the chicken or whatever it may be, just, guesstimate a little higher just so you're not underestimating and then overeating and having to deal with that next day bloat and not feeling so great. So that's one thing, just having integrity. When you check in too, like if you're overeating, log it, because I tell my clients this all the time. If I don't know, I can't help you. This isn't trying to be like a coach just yelling at you either. I do it myself too. When I'm logging in too, I try to log if I overeat. I want Jamie to know if I'm taking in more than I am or less, because it helps her help me get to my best shape. If your coach doesn't know, they can't help you. If you're taking in more, you're having great success, your body's responding well, clearly you need more food. So it's a win-win. And, for us as a coach, it's the best thing in the world if we can keep feeding you more and more. That's our goal. That's what we want. That's everyone's goal. So what else was I gonna, being mindful and intentional, just, be intentional with your food. If you're going to have a treat, like have something that you really, really want. Don't just mindlessly snack on stuff and then feel guilty about it because you had this, whatever snacks, and then you're feeling shame about it. Log it, pre-log it, plan on having it, and enjoy it. I think that's something that we all can be really guilty of, is we're just, we're getting snacky and just grabbing things here and there, and then we feel really bad because we know we went over and we can't track it. But I know for myself, like I have little things I like to have at the end of the day, and I always pre-log it, especially when I'm in prep. And so I know I can have it at the end of the day, and I look forward to it. But if you don't have that thing yet, try to find something you can look forward to and just pre-log your meals, and then have that one thing. Or if you have a birthday party coming up for your child, or something, event you're going to, and you want to have a little piece of cake, just try to pre-log that so that you're enjoying that treat and not just mindlessly snacking and feeling guilty about it. Because that's the joy of macros, is we get to be flexible. And so there's some things I was thinking about today. And then just being a detective of your macros, like Anne was talking about, just try to go through your food logs, make sure everything makes sense. Because again, you're cheating yourself, not us. As coaches, we're here to help you and guide you, but we can only do so much. We're not there to put the food in your mouth or, pick what you get to eat. So just be mindful and kind of keep an eye on what you're doing, because it's for you. We want you to succeed too. So those were kind of my thoughts throughout the day. But I don't know if there's any questions. I don't think I missed anything. Look real quick.
Yeah, I was just gonna say one other thing too, guys. Like, you make a little game of it. Like, check your own macros at the end of the day or before you submit your check-in, and kind of look through your week and make that connection yourself. Look at the page and go, that's really weird. My macros were perfect that day. I was within 4 or 5, but it says that I'm like 200 over in my calories, or it says I've got 300 calories left. Now that you can do the math at the bottom. If it says you're 5 over in protein and you're 5 under in carbs, that's a wash, right? So those cancel each other out because they're the same calories per gram. But you maybe went 2 over in fat, so that would only have put you over 18 calories, but your log says you're over by 180. Like, figure it out yourself. Be your own detective and kind of look through your log. That's kind of how I think I got better at tracking macros. Is going through and desperately trying to find like what's the problem. Usually it's packaged foods because labeling is so wonky, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes I just grabbed a bad entry. And so it's kind of fun to go, where is that? And go, that's the entry. There it is. I found it. You know, it's something crazy that's saying it's 200 calories when the macros only add up to 100 or whatever the case may be. So kind of have fun, like being your own detective and figuring out where things are so off.
Yeah, and also like we can be creative with our meals now. We don't have to just eat chicken and rice. Like I feel like that was the thing back, years ago when I started competing anyway, 8, 9, 10 years ago. It was chicken and macros. It was like the bro diet. That's all or chicken and rice. That's all you could have for every single meal of the day. And now it's like I'm looking through my clients' logs and it's like, oh, that sounds good. Well, that's a cool meal. I never would have thought of comparing those things, but you can get a little more creative with food. Maybe not when you get closer to a show, but when you're starting prep, and try different things. Don't feel like you have to be bored, but also, if something's working, stick with it. If you find a week that everything's perfect, stick with it for a while and see how your body responds rather than playing macro Tetris and trying to like squeeze things in throughout the day. And then you get to the end of the day and you're like, crap, I only have, 20 grams of protein and I'm over on everything else. So I don't know what to do, things like that. But just get a little more creative so you don't get bored.
I was also going to add that when you become a detective, as well as being creative, as Corinne just mentioned, it allows you to a lot more freedom, because I think when you are really aware of your macros, kind of the makeup of food, when you're doing things like on vacation or going out to eat, you are very, very familiar with food. You know what I mean? So it's not so overwhelming. You're able to go out and you're pretty good at eyeballing like what a serving of chicken is going to look like and a plate of fries. Is that 1 or 6 servings? Like you get really familiar with this when you're very, very intentional and paying attention to just what you're doing in your everyday life in terms of your macros. I think it's really, really helpful. And that way, when you go on vacation, you're not feeling like, oh my God, what am I going to eat? Because you already know this. I mean, there's only so many different types of food, and you can hold yourself accountable.
Yeah, and I think we start to learn like the better we eat too, like the difference between like having, a fast food meal and having like a meal that we made at home, like how much more filled up you are from what you made at home versus what you had at, McDonald's or something, and you get more bang for the buck. So it's almost worth it to just eat cleaner anyway. I think we kind of start learning that the more in tune we get with our bodies, the more we change the way we eat, and the more we prefer it. So doesn't mean it's bad to do that every once in a while, but I think it's just a change that we all kind of go through.
Yeah, Naomi, I'll answer your question. I don't know if Natasha hopped off or not, but so we talked at the very beginning. Yeah, everybody's answering for you, but at the beginning we just talked about how to do your own basic math. So carbohydrates and protein are 4 calories per gram. Fats are 9 calories per gram. So that's kind of math on those. It kind of piggybacking on what Corinne said, I think another thing and I wouldn't suggest it for if you're new to tracking, don't try this for a while. Wait till you've been tracking for at least a year, maybe longer. But when you're, in your improvement season and you're not like having to be like as strict, I think it's really valuable sometimes to like sometimes I'll plate my food, visually plate it and go, okay, I think that looks like 4 ounces of chicken. I'm going to say that's 100 grams of rice. I'm going to say that's, 150 grams of broccoli. I'll plate it and then weigh it after the fact. And I've gotten to the point where I can almost be spot on because I've eyeballed food long enough. So it's just a way to start like trusting yourself almost, or being like, okay, I visually know what 4 ounces of meat looks like. I know what 100 grams of rice looks like. And the more you play with that, like put it in the bowl, eyeball it and go, I think I'm pretty close. And then weigh it after the fact to see how good you are. Because let's face it, we don't always have a scale with us. Sometimes you're on vacation or you're at someone else's house or you're traveling. And then people get like anxiety ridden, paralyzed because they're like, I don't know what this is. I don't know how much food it is. Start trusting yourself. Like play with ways to experiment with how good you're getting at eyeballing portions. because that's something you'll use for the rest of your life. I mean, obviously the goal is not to track macros every day of your life for the rest of your life, but to kind of like be able to gravitate for periods of time to being more an intuitive eater. And the only way to be a good intuitive eater is to really get good at being able to eyeball portions and know what it is what you're putting in your body, and being able to go, that's about roughly, that meal is roughly 350 calories. The more you do it, the closer you're going to get.
That's a really good point too. I love that. Irene had a question. Irina, sorry.
Yes, I do. The closer we get to the competition, many of us get off dairy, and Corinne knows that. I already asked, but my next question is, so to avoid all dairy a few weeks out from the competition, it seems like I have no protein which tastes sweet, or anything that I can make sweet in my diet and have protein with it, because I'm a big yogurt girl. So I'm definitely going back to my yogurt the moment I can. But is there any suggestion on a protein which is dairy free and can be sweetened or sweet for 4 weeks out from the competition?
You could put stevia and cinnamon in your egg whites.
Oh, okay. I've
Yeah,
never done that before. It never occurred to me that that's a tasty combination, but okay. I'll try that.
A lot of people like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Irina,
it?
I like to do I combine fruit. So like if I do rice and chicken, I might do blueberries with it, or strawberries.
Okay.
Yeah, it might be just
It's
kind
very interesting combination. I mean, obviously I have never tried anything like that before, but I've been doing this for 6 years, and every time I have to go off dairy, that's the greatest stress in my prep, because I love my yogurt.
yeah.
All
So
right.
yeah, you can always pair. I like to make like a chicken, especially now, like a chicken salad. If I was in prep, I wouldn't use mayo. I'd probably use some mustard,
Right.
and put some fruit in there, like celery and maybe some grapes, because it would just give that sweetness.
Thank you so much. Very good.
There's also something called Devotion Nutrition, and they have sweetened stevia packets. You can get it online, but they have anything from savory to sweet. I use it all the time, like on top of fruit or in egg whites. Actually, they have they all have different flavors.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with sweetener. I just couldn't come up with the idea to where put that sweetener on in terms
Gotcha.
of pure protein, which is not dairy.
Sure.
All right. Thanks.
Any other questions, comments, input? Kelsey, go ahead.
Okay, so mine is more of just like a suggestion after using MyFitnessPal for, there's like 2 things that after 5 years I still didn't even know how to do. And maybe it might be something you want to review, but like putting the timestamps with your meals, that's been like a huge game changer for me in the past 6 months. So anybody that's not doing that, like it is a setting that you can go in and actually track the timestamps of when you're doing your meals. That's helped me a ton with like being more consistent when I'm eating throughout the day, rather than just like tracking where my macros at. And then different flavors of the same item don't always have the same macros. So like
true.
I got really, so I'm a huge, like Corinne knows, I'm a huge Crystal Light person. And for the longest time, for 5 years, like I was always just tracking them the same. And when I finally really stopped and looked at the various packages, they range from 2 carbs to 4, which if you're drinking 4 packets a day of the 4 carbs, that's a whole lot different than 4 packets of the 2 carbs. So that's something that I've had to watch. I still just use the same entry every time, but I adjust the serving size based on the flavor that I'm using. So that's just something to watch out for. Like if you're eating the same things but different flavors, they're not necessarily the same. So look at the nutrition facts.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's actually a really good one, because protein bars are another one, or even some protein powders. If you just type in like the brand and don't type in the actual flavor of the bar you're eating, they can be very chocolate. So the flavor does make a difference.
Rice cakes is a good one.
Yes, that's another
Yeah.
really good one for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yep, the caramel ones are very different than the lightly salted.
And the chocolate ones.
Or the chocolate, yeah, right.
Corinne introduced me to the chocolate ones.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
In case anyone's wondering, this brand, the Walmart brand of caramel, is only 1 more gram than the lightly salted. So still pretty close.
Oh,
Ooh.
really?
Interesting.
they-
They're
are
slightly smaller, like slightly thinner than the Quaker ones, but I actually
Yeah.
like the flavor better. So
Oh, that's good to know.
Thank you for the timestamp information, Kelsey. I think that that's really cool. I didn't even know about that one, or I've never
I
used
didn't
it.
either.
Yeah,
Me either.
that's a good one.
Mm-hmm. That is good.
Anyone else?
All right.
Questions, comments, input?
No.
A quiet group tonight.
I know. Well, thank you guys all so much for joining us. We really appreciate you guys taking out time out of your Sunday. Our next call is scheduled for July 23rd, and our topic will be the power of reverse. So we will be talking about reversing from all different aspects, whether it's you're getting on stage, coming off stage, or you don't get on stage at all. It's a very important topic, very important topic. So we'll be addressing it from all those different ways. So thank you guys so much. Have a fabulous week, and we look forward to seeing you guys soon.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Thank you very much.
thanks, see ya.
Thank you.
Everyone.
There he is.
Yeah.
Amy's little guy.
Bye.
This is
Oh.
a girl.
She's
This is
cute.
Riley.
Hi.
Hi, Riley.
She just woke up, but she's not angry.
Like, who are these people?
She, she needs some macros, Mom.
Yes, yes, she does. See ya.
She's cute. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Judith. Naomi, did you have a question? Uh-huh.
I did. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I just had a question. Is there a way, or is there somewhere where I can go that has like food ideas, like I don't know, like just different types of recipes, or just I don't know, just snack ideas.
Yeah, there's tons. There's so many resources. Like Instagram even has a bunch where you can just I think there's like one called meal prep ideas, that sort of thing. And then two people that are worth following is Lily Eats and Tells. She has like 4 or 5 cookbooks out, and they're all great. But the coolest thing about her is every single recipe that she has, and they're all on her Instagram page as well. They're already entered in MyFitnessPal. So she has like amazing like low fat like dressings and all kinds of recipes, but all of them, every single one of them are already entered in FitnessPal by gram. So they're super easy to log. And then Mason Woodruff, he's got a ton of recipes on his page as well. And I think he's in the process of getting all of his uploaded into MyFitnessPal as well. But let me look really quick.
You said that Lily Eats and Tells was the first one, right?
It's called Lily. Yep, Lily Eats and Tells, and it's spelled out Lillie, and then another E, Eats and Tells. But yeah, she's amazing, and all of her recipes are fabulous. Let me see, meal prep. Let me find these ones really quick.
Because I know, with you guys always like cooking your meals and other athletes, like, people just come up with their own ideas. So
yeah,
I didn't know.
There's one called the Practical Prep. That's good, and that's Instagram. It's called the Practical Prep. Where's the other one? Let me see if I can find a couple of these. There's so many good ones. Healthy Grace. She's really good. I followed hers. It's called Healthy Grace _WW. She's got a lot of really, really, really great ideas for like easy meal prep, but like creative type stuff. Just some.
No, that's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I know sometimes you just get like writer's block almost, right? Like I don't know. I can't
Yeah,
come up
I
with
mean,
anything new.
or like I'm just, you get bored of kind of seasoning, your food a certain way that it's like, okay, I know that I can, change it up a little bit, but I don't have ideas.
Yeah. Oh, and then obviously we've got the Fit Body Foodies page on Instagram. People post a
Okay.
lot of great stuff on there as well. So,
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you, ladies, so much. Have a great one. Have a great
You're
Sunday.
welcome.
Sorry.
You're welcome. You too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.